You sent it to me, so I have it. All right. Hey, hello everybody. Sorry we're a little bit late. We just had a few things going on between all of us, but they're all settled now. So, good evening.
Yes, good evening to you, everybody. Hope you're breathing okay. My allergies have been acting up, as are a lot of people's. Ooh, bunnies. Yeah, the atmosphere is rather paranormal for us. We're surviving. I wonder if our bodies can adapt to that, if we can evolve and kind of breathe this stuff.
Live with smoke.
Yeah.
Now imagine if all those forests in Canada were like pot fields.
Yeah,
Maybe sending some smoke down
this
here.
is a blessing. We don't care about traffic jams or anything.
Just pull over and dance.
Yeah. Well, I've lived with smokers. You think I could live with smoke?
Well, that's not the kind of smoke I was talking about.
I know what you. How do you know about that?
I've heard. Actually, I don't smoke anything.
No, I don't
good
either.
Or bad,
I don't. Not intentionally, anyway.
Yeah, and the rest of the stuff just makes me weird.
Yes. Well, is everybody feeling paranormal tonight? Thank you for joining us. We're just glad to be here. So many things, so many mishaps, so many things happening on the road. You know, I do think we talk about things metaphysical and paranormal and parapsychological, but what happens in the really real world is, it's kind of stranger when you think about it. My friend, his brother owns the music complex store, and that was plowed into by a car early morning, pre-dawn.
Oh yeah, have you talked to him today? I didn't.
I'm sending him a message. I haven't quite sent it yet. Yeah, and
but they didn't say anything about any injuries or anything.
So no, nobody was hurt, but the store is temporarily destroyed.
Seems to be something about Greenville and cars.
Yeah, because it's the same road, like 3 miles away.
Yeah. As that last accident.
Well, we have some Paracons coming up. We will be going to.
You have Paracons coming up.
Well, you have a Paracon coming up. Yeah.
That's okay because I like that one.
Yeah, I know it was. They're wonderful, and there's reuniting with people. They can also be a tad tedious when you have to get there and you have to,
Yes. So why don't you tell them where you're going?
Okay. Well, first place I will be going. I will be going to New Orleans and everything. That is Fright Fest.
It's one word. Nolans.
Yeah, that's how he says it. He taught me how to say it. Howard Petrie is the man who's organizing this, and that will be Fear Fest, and that will be September 29th, 30th, and October 1st, unless they changed it again. So, wait a minute. He did bump it up. It is going to be a little earlier.
Is it?
No, wait a minute. It was going to be the last week of October, but now he did move it up to, so it's going to be the end of September and the beginning. Okay. Yeah, so no, I'm clear for that. I can make that.
All right, as long as he's taking care of the travel arrangements, so he'll get there on time. Or?
If he doesn't, I'm not.
If he doesn't, you won't get there, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Turn that off.
I thought, yes, I will turn it off.
While he's taking care of his technical difficulties, let's see. Today we were doing historical society kind of stuff.
Ooh, yeah.
Yesterday was my last day as the president of the Historical Society because I believe every organization should be fluid. Other people should be in charge. We shall take turns because people have different ideas of how things should go. And sometimes you just want to sit back and be one of the worker bees and get some things done.
Well,
I love doing research.
Your original game plan was to
rule the world, but that didn't work. So.
Well, not yet. You got some time, girl.
The town of Johnston.
You're young compared to me. Yeah, the town of Johnston you could handle, I'm sure. You were going to be around. You had said for 2 years, and then COVID stopped the biannual election. So for 4 years, and I congratulate you. And you were absolutely
overstatement.
Some people would say you were wonderful. You were all about community outreach, and I thought you did a fantastic job. Honestly, not being biased.
You can only reach out so much, and people are interested or they're not. And I always tell people, if you're watching, I'll tell people in the paranormal, you think you want to go into buildings and do some historical research, and they, we want to find out who lived here. They're in an old haunted house. The best place you can start is your local historical society, and the best way you can get access to whatever they have or get someone to help you is to join the society, become a member, give them a little bit of help. It doesn't mean you have to be there all the time. We're happy for someone who comes in and pulls weeds in front of our historic house. That's a contributing member of the Historical Society.
Yes, and
So I always
should be a resource for the
yeah,
town.
a little bit. Everybody should do a little bit. Everybody should actually do something that doesn't that benefits someone else beside themselves in life. But now I'm getting kind of philosophical.
Well, now that you're not in a high administrative position, you can do history.
Right. All that means is I don't have to take care of all the phone calls and messages and bills and this and that.
Yeah, we won't look to you for that.
But the one thing we still do is clean cemeteries. And we headed out today. We planned on doing this lot. That's a double lot. And actually, Keith has come with us sometimes. We'll talk to him about that later. But so we tried to get into a cemetery today. And I'm going to show you guys a picture of
That's right, you
what we were met with.
This is
and
beyond...
that may not look like a lot. It may look like, you've got some weeds. And so that's another view. And I realized you really couldn't tell how tall those weeds were, the vines that were creeping. So I got a Walter for scale. Walter is a very big man.
He's about 6'3", and he's, substantial.
And that was Walter, and that was the wall of weeds that had grown. That wasn't even the cemetery.
No, that's the entrance.
We couldn't get to it. We actually, there is a pine under there that Walter ended up cutting down with his chainsaw, which let us look down the rest of what used to be the path. And we're just going to have to go back with machetes. And we're just going to have to weed whack our way in with machetes because we don't even have a machine we have a weed machine. But I mean, those are just so tall. We're gonna have to cut them down to run the machine through. So we went to another lot today and we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, that one's going to be easy to tackle in the autumn.
Another lot that we've done before, and we were getting the weeds, just getting some leaves off. And underneath, it's been so wet. There's a lot of weird things growing. And I don't know if you've ever seen this kind of a what do you call it? It's not really a mushroom. What do you call? What's like a mushroom?
It's a fungus.
Fungus called dead man's fingers. And it looks like there are dead man's fingers rising up and out of the ground. How cool is that?
What I would love to do, but there's no way it would work out with timing and all that. What I would love to do is, if I had a human skull besides the one I'm wearing, or body part or something, which I used to.
Play a joke on me and hide the skull.
I would love to bury that skull, or
I found bones, but I've had them looked at by people who know, and they were all animal bones.
Yeah, there's one we get hopeful.
Looked kind of weird, but they assured me it was just a large animal.
But I would cover that with dirt, and I would do it just before you got over there. I would do it with my rake and oh, look what I found! Look what I found!
I think I would know the difference.
Well, it depends. If it had a hole drilled in the top, you'd know.
So, like I said, our guest that's coming on tonight has helped us clean cemeteries in the past. We thank him very much for that.
He does it all.
Yes.
He's a handsome, rugged fellow too.
He could show up when you don't. We wouldn't have a difference.
No, you wouldn't tell the difference right away.
So I do have a biography, short biographical sketch.
Oh, good, you read it.
I should say. Would you like me to read it? Because
please, I know his story.
Well, you're the one who sent it to me.
Yeah, see if there are any surprises. Yeah, I texted it.
Let me just get it up on my phone here because you
it's
said
okay. I'll keep him entertained.
On my phone. And,
I would never fall in love again until I found her.
Oh my God.
I found you.
Are you all right?
I wrote that song. I never got any credit for it.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I just found it. I'm sorry, that took a little while. Introduction. Demonologist Keith Johnson is regularly called upon to assist individuals in dealing with alleged malevolent paranormal phenomena or potential inhuman infestation in their homes. Keith is the co-founder of New England Anomalies Research and hosts a weekly TV show dealing with the paranormal topics called Ghosts Are Near, NEAR.
Hey, that's
clever.
Catchy.
Which airs locally in Rhode Island and can also be seen online. Keith is the author of the Paranormal Realities book series that chronicles his experiences as a paranormal investigator. Books 1, 2, and 3 have been published, and subsequent books are in the works and due for future release. Oh, I did not know that. Keith is also the brother of demonologist Carl Johnson.
Well, that's why we've got him here, isn't it? He's achieved something.
So, all you ladies,
what a guy!
All you ladies who tune in just to watch Carl, you get double trouble tonight.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I can get a high load of Keith. Keith Johnson, come forward.
Hello there.
Hi, Keith.
See if you got me in there. Yes. How are you doing? Thank you for having me.
Hey,
We get to be on your show, so.
Yeah.
That's right. You had us on as guest.
We've been
Yes. Yeah. That was an interesting show interviewing you both together.
That was fun. I had never been in that studio.
We'll do it again. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yes, that would be great.
I hardly know where to start. I know you'll get it rolling, Keith. If I don't say anything, you'll start. But
in fact, next time I have you two on, I think we'll do parts 2 and 3 at the same night.
I would like that. It would keep us around. And, we're out to vittles afterwards. Yes.
And we'll have to make believe we came back in for number 3 so people won't know.
Yeah. Now, Keith.
Acting.
It is acting. I told you, acting. Yes.
Acting.
I see.
Oh my gosh.
Make sure my eyebrow.
No, there's not going to be any makeup people.
We don't have that.
No makeup people for this one.
Oh,
yes,
Keith.
I do help in cemetery cleanup sometime. It's very rewarding to know that you're doing that and sprucing something up so other people can enjoy, and it's not just some overgrown thing that people pass by. It's very rewarding to be able to do that.
Right, and you start reading those stones and the dates and the names, and you start looking at different stones and like, oh, he was related to her, and oh my God, he had 3 wives, and there was stories galore.
When you look at that, like I was saying,
I get obsessed. I want to recreate everybody I see there. Look up their history and find out everything about them.
I was reading a headstone. A man was a widow for 42 years. I mean, it wasn't the one we were in today, but it's like you do have an affinity. These were people with dreams and visions and hopes, and had to run their lives and raise children. Yeah, then they're not just stones. I don't see them as that, and Elise doesn't. In fact, Elise always has a way of. She might do it quietly and silently, but she thanks them, the people, for having us as their guest, and said we won't disturb you. We're just here to make it look neater. And it's kind of a little, bridging the gap. It's a human touch.
And a little self-serving. Like if you guys are happy with what we've done and you'd like to tell me about it, please do, because
you print your voice on this recorder. Yeah. And of course, you being a cemetery, you actually are a cemetery conservator and a taphophile. We can say that?
Stop
all right.
it.
Yeah, we're open about it. Elise is a taphophile, epitaph. And Elise is a cemetery researcher. I mean, this is a passion of hers, and she's very, very thorough. That's why she's so good at research. She's thorough. She finds things other people might not. And you must have captured a whole plethora of ghost voices when you record, seen apparitions darting in between the stones. Of course, you've been, having been there so much. No. But some people have, some people do. It's funny how, why wouldn't we get voices in cemeteries? Why do you think, Keith? Why don't the ghosts saying, hey, we're here, don't step on me?
Well, certainly you can, and I have, but they're usually very brief, and you can catch them outside. You can catch them in cemeteries. It's sometimes just who feels like speaking at the time. And
we're talking about EVP, electronic voice phenomena, where voices are imprinted.
Well, it would be just like any other location, it's sometimes going to get something in say a restaurant, and sometimes not. Sometimes going to get something reportedly haunted, one of those famous haunted houses or asylums or whatever you want to call them. And sometimes you won't.
I found that you can go to the most haunted site, that has a reputation. You can go to an inn or a castle in Great Britain, the British Isles, and Ireland that has a reputation for hauntings, and you might not get anything if you sit there all night. If you've got a group of people, you've got 10 or 12 people, like, oh, can you talk to us? Yeah, you will get something. It'll be produced somehow, even though it might be psychokinetic principles, but sometimes you won't get the ghost. And so it's rare when they come out in cemeteries.
Have you ever watched the show Ghosts on CBS?
Oh, we love that show.
Oh my God. I like to think it's like that. It's so funny. They've got somebody from like each generation from.
Yes. Yeah. And they keep accumulating. Yes. That is so entertaining. And we grow to love those characters. Yeah. And you sometimes wish it could be like that,
Right. And each one has their own special little power. One guy can move things. One can make lights flash. One, everything that you come across.
Yeah. They learn
it's not easy. It's
They
not
have to
easy for them
dress
to
like-
move objects, physical objects.
Sharing
It
closets,
just takes so much energy,
Makes it
Yeah.
kind of
which would be
realistic.
logical.
And like we think ghosts are, we don't know a lot about, we don't know a lot about ghosts. We suspect things. Don't they have to stay dressed in the clothes in which they died? So
Usually,
one
of course,
character's missing pants. Huh?
Ed and Lorraine Warren, Ed and Lorraine Warren would always say that this is how ghosts project themselves. They want you to see them in a certain way, so they would project themselves that way, wearing the clothes they did in life. But yeah, they don't usually seem to change their clothes. And interestingly, cemetery ghosts, cemetery spirits of children, they seem to just wear like a white nightshirt or something like that. They're often seen like that. They're not dressed in the full Victorian clothing, whatever.
Well,
They
yes,
usually,
if they weren't wealthy people, if you know, you
Yeah.
can usually tell by the stone how wealthy a family was. The stone of a child, especially, wouldn't have money to do more than carve a name on it if they had that. Maybe the child wouldn't be buried in any clothes that could be handed down to a younger sibling. You know, they would just be dressed in something that maybe they slept in, or just something made out of a simple linen or muslin, or something that wasn't worth a lot of money. That would make a lot of sense.
right. Elise, have you ever been in Exeter, Rhode Island? Have you ever been to the Tillinghast Cemetery on Forest Hills Drive?
Yes.
And you know
Yeah.
the whole story behind Snuffy
the
Tillinghast.
mistaken
Sarah,
vampire.
yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that some of the later stones, they seem to have money, where they had the nice carvings, like Honor
Yeah.
Hopkins Tillinghast, and it's a nice epitaph and everything. But the smaller stones, like the children that were buried before that era, they're just basically markers
Yeah.
with no inscription on them and everything.
Right.
And
Find those,
just so the
yes.
family will know where they are.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty sad. We have a cemetery that has a lot of unmarked stones. That's very intact. I mean, you find a lot of cemeteries that do have a lot of those unmarked, or rude stones, as we call them. But up at Citizens Bank campus, up near 295 in Johnston, we have there's a cemetery that land was just total forest until they built that whole campus, and every root stone is there. It's amazing to see. We don't know who all these people are. The Belknaps are buried there, and some other families. But other than the marked, there's some beautiful marbles from the 1800s, a few older stones, a few slates in one little section. But right next to that, just all root stones all the way across head and foot, all lined up.
And some of these cemeteries, like we're talking about early 19th century, like the one at Citizens Bank Plaza. Some of those stones they look like alabaster. They are glowing white. And why would that be? Because somebody tended to them. Somebody used a special organic cleaner.
Oh, well, yeah.
Well, you do that. You do that. Use the polish and everything. You're able to clean them
The reason
specially.
why we have as much, success as we do in these cemeteries is a historian named James N. Arnold went around. I don't know. I mean, we have trouble getting around in our cars to go to all the cemeteries in our town. This man in the late 1800s he must have had horses, and he was lame. He walked with a limp or crutches or something. Visited almost all the cemeteries in northern Rhode Island.
That's how we know much about some of these.
I didn't realize he walked with a limp. I didn't realize that. I've seen his name in the cemetery database, of course.
That's where
you know,
get all
inspected
the
by.
information.
That's just it. The database now comes from his findings largely.
And he helps us reconstruct some. There are a few that have been kind of lost. People vandalize them, or at one point, Boy Scouts, thinking they were helping, were taking out footstones and lining them all up against the wall.
Oh, wow.
You lose places of where people belonged. Destruction happens. So we would go back to Arnold's records, because he always recorded them in a certain way. He'd walk in and he'd go like left to right, back to the next row, and then back again. So like we found a cemetery in a field in a farm that had one standing stone. The rest of them had all been leaned up against that one standing stone.
Oh, that's terrible.
And due to Arnold's records, though, we know where that standing stone came in the order of things, and we were able to reconstruct most of the cemetery.
Now that is reaching into the future
good.
and us reaching back.
Yeah, makes things very interesting. Or sometimes, when there's a lot of destruction where people have broken the stones, we can, if we know the epitaphs, he wrote down everything, the epitaphs, all the carving on the stone. Once you know what it says, it's a little easier to put those pieces together if they're not fitting perfectly.
Right. And the West Greenwich Cemetery, historical cemetery, where they had, where Nellie Vaughan is buried, Nellie Louise Vaughan. For some time, her headstone was propped up against the fence. So that's where people assume she was buried. And of course, the stone's not there anymore because people kept taking chunks out of it. And that wasn't her original stone anyway. Right. That's not even her original burial place. In the early 1900s, her body was moved there from Robin Hollow Road. Her father was a blacksmith. Residence. Yeah, and there was a new cemetery there. So she was disinterred, not for being a vampire or a witch, but simply because they put her in the newer cemetery there.
Persons love their folklore.
To be with other family members.
Yeah, people and her epitaph. Right. I am waiting and watching for you. And then she must be a vampire. Listen to that. She's she's resurrected. And that, of course, that's a symbol for a young person who's gone on before their family members and is waiting. But Lisa, are you very familiar with the symbolism and on gravestones?
Somewhat.
Like what they mean? Yeah.
Somewhat. I have to look a lot of them up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's good to have somebody that's knowledgeable there. Like a tree trunk that's cut short. Somebody died young, things like that.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot.
Pointing upward, they waiting in heaven, things like that. Yeah.
The willow was in style for a while. The winged skulls and
that goes back to 18th century.
Yeah.
The death's heads. Really mourned.
The death heads and the little angels, the cherubs. That's always I love those.
Yeah, and a lot of times, once they started putting the marbles in the 1800s, children's stones would be small with a little lamb on top.
Oh yes.
A little lamb, but they've been around for a couple of hundred years now, and most of them look like baby seals because horns smooth and they have like a pointed nose on them. Why is there a seal on that grave? I'm like, that's a lamb.
Yes, Alyssa's had some remarkable finds there, and I mean, each one is its own story. I don't want to take up too much time with it, but you've done some good work there. Finding other people just all right, let's go. No, there's something here.
Well, with Arnold's records, we can see where there's a hole, a hole in a line. We know whose stone we're looking for. Yeah. You just literally get a metal pole and just jam it into the ground until you hit a stone, and then dig it up.
And you keep going until you finally hit. Okay, so we're not done here.
Today is the one anniversary. It is today. It's 21 years ago tonight that when I was with the Atlantic Paranormal Society, we went to Mansfield, Connecticut. House built in, I believe, 1872, was in the 1870s, and very, very active as far as voices. And the woman was being very oppressed, but she is at the point where she was accepting it. And, I know my husband's going to die. It's going to take him and things like that. But she'd gotten to that point. But interesting, upstairs, downstairs, of course, Grant Wilson said he kept seeing a shadow figure, but every time he tried to take a picture of it, it would flit about and he couldn't capture it. And we went upstairs in the attic, and unfortunately we had to leave because the homeowner had to go to work. But I commented, it doesn't want to be filmed. And when I played my recording back, my audio recording, you hear this woman's voice so clearly say, "Let's go down there. Let's go there."
Did you go?
That was a very she very, very sultry voice. Sounded like Britney Spears at the time. But that's a very interesting. I found it a very interesting study in EVP that the voice kept trying to talk, but then ran out of steam. Was no longer able to pronounce the word, but you could hear the struggle. You could hear the struggle.
Yeah.
That's scientific research, I think.
Let's go, but it kept that breathiness, trying to stay that.
Speculation.
It enunciated, then it ran out of steam. That's very interesting.
What do I say to that?
Yeah, talking about running out of energy, and the spirit can't move it,
Was the homeowner startled by that? So did you play it for the?
We played that for next time we came, and it's interesting that Jen Rossi, she recorded a little girl crying. It was heartbreaking to listen to. It's this little girl, a baby, or a little girl crying pathetically, and she had tears in her eyes listening to it. It was so pathetic, and we all heard it. We all heard it when she played it to us that night. Next morning, She goes to play it, it's gone.
Ah, the recording was
that happens sometimes. It was just gone completely.
It's
I find EVP, there's sometimes the voice itself is of a different quality than just the mechanical recording. It's like impressing itself. That's just the theory, but it's of a different quality. It's not the same vocal quality as we have. Although some Class A's, like my brother and I, of course, this is going back to the early 1980s. We were in our kitchen and just talking, having a conversation, and all of a sudden, I was just, because I like to record all the time, and a woman's voice came out that said Ethel, and we had an Aunt Ethel, and that was my mom. We played it to my mom. I said that was her voice. That was her voice. She had passed on years before, but we had those old USO records. They used to volunteer for the USO back in World War II. And she was singing on that. And she wasn't shy. She had a beautiful voice. She was singing on that and speaking, but that was her voice. Exactly. That voice on that recording. I don't necessarily believe it was her there, but it sure sounded like her. It was an exact duplication of her voice.
I believe it was. I believe it like this. You could equate it to the string theory. You pluck it, it's a resonance that endures past life. And I think that's what we inadvertently tapped into, because we weren't trying to record spirit voices.
I was just going to say, you weren't trying to speak to it. We weren't there saying, Ethel, speak to us. Let us know if you're,
Right. We weren't really asking that.
Just random. That's pretty cool.
Well, Keith, I should qualify and quantify my brother. We both have special gifts. We're very similar, but actually he has gifts that I don't, and I don't have any gifts that, he doesn't have. So
yeah, that would cause a problem.
So it was an uneven trade-off.
That would cause a problem when we were kids, on our birthday, if he got a gift and I didn't get it, and so my mother had to always buy two of everything, buy the same gift.
We went through about 15 years.
If that's what you're talking
about. But Keith, what I was referring to is Keith has an encyclopedic memory retention. When we were members of TAPS, the Atlantic Paranormal Society, his moniker was the Walking Encyclopedia. One time Keith got into a rant about Jack the Ripper, and Keith, as much as Patricia Cornwall, as much as anybody, and I say this, I can support this. My brother is equal in authority as any researcher. He just is. He has the advantage that he reads something and remembers it. I don't. But we were in a diner when we were in a TAPS mission one time, and Keith got into talking about Jack the Ripper, and I said, Keith, it's a Dinant families here. But then I started asking him. I said, all right, when that murder happened, what day of the work was it? Thursday. What was the moon sign? 3/4 moon. What was the inspector's middle name? And he's got it all. It's like when you hear something, you remember for a little while. I
like to think of, maybe I'm a little like Mr. Spock there with all the things. And I remember Dr. McCoy once said when he lost his brain and he had to reattach his brain, that episode of the original Star Trek series, I should never have done it. I should never have reconnected his mouth.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of think of myself like,
Yeah, we wonder how DeForest Kelley, who portrayed Dr. Leonard McCoy, how did he keep it? How many takes did they have to do? They crack up laughing when he says, damn it, Jim, where in the universe are you going to look for Spock's brain?
Yeah.
That's a tough one to get through. Yes. Oh, Keith, what started your interest in the paranormal?
Same as yours, Carl. We, we were, when we were really, really little, we were fascinated with cowboys, and we're obsessed with cowboys. And then we got into like ghost stories, and everything was scary, but we were fascinated with anything to do with the supernatural. And when Carl and I were 5 years old, that's when we had our first experience. It was around this time of year. And my mother, we had just finished dinner. My mother got a little choked up after supper. And so my dad he got her a glass of water from the faucet, gave it to her. She went to drink it, went to sip it. And all of a sudden you heard the slurping sound. And I saw it bubbling, and the water was gone. We called that our thirsty ghost. And my mother saying, where did it go? Lenny, where did the water go? And it just vaporized. It bubbly, and it just vanished. My sister was too young to remember that. She was in the high chair, but Carl and I were about 5 years old. So I remember that very, very clearly. So that's we had things happen in our house once. I mean, it wasn't the Amityville house. We didn't have to leave after 28 days, but
there were some nights I wanted to leave. It was so spooky.
Carl remembers a lot of the things that happened, like a glove, a woman's driving glove, which we'd never seen before, appearing in the hallway. Then we look for it again, it's gone. Things like that, knockings, voices outside the window, not constant, but it would happen enough to let us know that something was out there. My mother said, your imagination, but after a while we knew it wasn't. Then when we were in our mid-teens, the activity picked up again. And so, as a lot of people know the story, my brother and sister took advantage of that by trying to communicate with it, whatever was there. Well, it's here, so we'll try to communicate with it.
Now, it wasn't exactly, who are you? What do you want from us? Can't you leave us in peace? No, we had an implement, didn't we?
It was a
spirit board.
Yes. Yeah. It was very, very friendly conversations, at least at first. And they came up with Sylvia. I didn't do it very often. I stopped after a little while, but my brother and sister kept up with it.
Smoking shortly after that. And
yes.
Eventually stopped that too.
Yes. Yeah. But it spelled out the name Sylvia. And where are you, Sylvia? It spelled out cellar, Cellar. And of course, my brother and sister went down to see if Sylvia would communicate. And nothing happened for about several minutes. They were going to go upstairs. They had the lights off. They were about to go upstairs, and they heard the 3 resounding knocks. So they did get a response there. And then it didn't stop there. My brother started experiencing especially more and more phenomena. I heard it outside of the house going on too.
Yes,
I heard voices and unmistakably. And I wasn't 5 years old. Now I was like 15. So I knew I was awake and I was experiencing this. And well, that sparked our interest. And of course, as a lot of people who know our history, our interest led us to attend a lecture given by Ed and Lorraine Warren at Rhode Island College. And we didn't just sit there and listen, at least, well, I sat and listened to the lecture, but Carl was on stage a little while later, invited by Ed Warren, who's got experience in the occult and things like. Carl raises his hand, and first thing you know, he's invited to be down on stage and everything. But it was there. We also met members of P.I.R.O, Parapsychological Investigation and Research Organization. There was a parapsychology club located at Rhode Island College, which was rare for the time. But they introduced themselves to us. They asked us to speak at one of their lectures, and before long, we were invited to join. Carl and I were 17 years old at the time, and that's our first paranormal group that we ever joined. And well, we know where that led to our first famous in-home case.
The parents' house, which 50 years later, well, 40 years from the time of that, our initial investigation, we conducted the first paranormal investigation of the parents' homestead, and we were conducting a scientific investigation to the best of our limited abilities, but we were documenting and taking pictures and interviewing. I never felt there was anything evil there, but it was like, eerie enough.
Contrary to what people always believed, that house was relatively new at the time. People always think of old houses being haunted.
Yeah, our house was new.
The house that you lived in wasn't a haunted house.
The house was 6 to 8 months younger than my brother and I. It was under construction when we were 6 months old.
Right, so when you guys were 5 years old, our house was only
That's
around
right.
5 years old.
And before that, before it was built, my mom told us it was a pony corral. But who knows what could have been on the grounds, and it could have been something from the house next door, which was a lot older. Right. My grandma lived, it's
yeah,
that was kind of haunted too. Yeah, I always wonder why it would be. You always get contradictions and conundrums in paranormal research. Okay, we know that ghosts are the spirits of departed humans, and they are stuck. They are trapped here. They want to go into the light. Or perhaps they have unfinished business. They have something to tell us. And it's up to us, the paranormal investigators, to usher them over to the light.
Yes, they've been waiting. They've been waiting for 2 centuries for someone with the knowledge to send them on. And finally they can be free and things like that. That's a common belief.
They'd have to decide it for themselves.
Well,
maybe convince them. I don't think you can.
That gives us an explanation. It gives us a working theory. And so, well, the ghosts are here. We see them. We've heard them. We photograph them. There must be some reason. Let's think about it. Now we know that they have unfinished business, that they want to get our attention. We don't know any of that. There's always a contradiction, like,
Theory, but
because the
you know.
property was owned, but it wasn't built on, except the
Yes.
back section, there was a pony corral, and there were, a couple of cows there, and,
Yeah.
but, what happened there to make it haunted? We don't know, because there wasn't a house there before.
Yeah.
There are, anything we've
I'm
found.
sure it was part of whatever the house was next door. I'm sure it was, part of their land. And
That was a very old house. It was my grandfather owned it at the time, and it was the first house in the town of Situate to have plumbing installed, to have running water. So it was
Wow.
very, very historic.
Is that
Yes.
still there?
Yes.
The old one
Oh, yes,
still
it is.
there
Yeah,
next
with the
door?
roses
Because
on
I mean,
it.
I know
It's
where
still
the
there when
house
I
is.
drive
didn't
by.
realize that
Yeah.
was still the old
In
one
fact,
there.
there were two maple trees. They had an elm tree. They're just about extinct around here, but there are two maple trees there. One of them is still tilted from the hurricane of 1938. And, it didn't take
That's
it down.
historic.
Yeah. So maybe land has memories too. I mean, we can theorize all we want, but there's a lot we don't know about.
Yeah, here in especially in Situate, rural places like that. Here in New England, there are so many rocks. The soil is the poor farmers had to deal with rocks before any modern equipment, when they're plowing their fields. And I believe, of course, rock has a lot of magnetic properties. It has quartz, mica, minute traces of gold all throughout New England. So I think that serves sometimes as a recording, and a lot of running water too.
Yeah.
No, maybe I should have brought that DVD of the episode we were in. There was an episode of A Haunting, and I've been in plenty of those shows, as is Keith, but this one told our story where it was actually the Carl story, but with Keith and Cindy in it, my brother and sister. It actually, and no, but it was we all narrated too. My brother.
No, it was how Carl got his parents' home haunted.
That's basically the premise right there.
They did it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's encapsulated. They take a lot of years and put it into one, and it takes place in 1971. And I was more hesitant with the spirit communication using a board. Accurately portrayed.
But the way it was portrayed, we're going down to, Carl says, we're going down to the cellar.
There are some exaggerations.
The cellar, no way.
Oh, I love that. When we first saw that, episode debuted on December 2nd, 2016. And they have us, they got to condense it. And they had very accurately some of the conversations we had are transliterated from what we actually said. We're playing on which happened. We have the planchette. We're playing on the spirit board, and we say, "Where will we find you?" And it spells out cellar. And then the planchette flies off the board, and it said cellar. I'm going down to the cellar. And they have the actor portraying Keith, my twin brother. He goes, "The cellar? No way!" I said, "Oh, you chicken!" And when we watched that the first time, Keith standing there like this, and is it the cellar? No way! And Keith said, "I never said that."
They had a very attractive Sylvia, though, a very attractive ghost in there.
Ooh, I liked her. Yeah, well, I tell you that
skin and everything.
Sylvia, when the ghost of Sylvia, and she did appear, that was pretty accurate, and it actually made me nostalgic. I said, "Yeah, it's like I'm watching what happened." They did that good.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah. It was, if you haven't experienced anything like that, you wonder what they really look like. Yeah. So if they got that pretty down pat, that's good to know.
A ghost is not solid, but this looked like a person. Not every ghost I've seen, but most of the time when I have seen a ghost, it looks like a solid person. And there's a cognizance involved. Within like a third of a second, I realized there's a person here. They're dressed kind of differently. What's up? Why is this person here? And then by half a second, you might say, it's I realize that I'm looking at something from the past. And a spirit will look at you if you're fortunate enough to see one with that static gaze. They don't blink. Eyes don't move back and forth. They just look at you. In my experience.
You hadn't seen anything at the house? Did you have any visual apparitions?
I really didn't see much in the way of visuals. Mine was more audible. I heard things. I definitely heard things. I was tapped. I was touched, but I didn't. The only thing I ever saw was when I had some friends over, and it was my fault. I was doing an experiment trying to see what I could see, like as far as the spirit. And I saw a spirit face appear on one of the girls' face, over her face. And I probably shouldn't have done that, but you know, when you're young, you want to see these things and everything. But I thought that was fascinating. Then it started happening to me. People would, I didn't see it, but people would tell me they saw this face appear on mine. It happened a few times. So finally I prayed about it and I said, I don't want this to happen anymore. So, and it never happened again. But
yeah, we've had a comment and a question. Sarah Yusuf had said that and when we're talking about cemeteries, that the foliage, the overgrowth can actually destroy the stones. It ingests them. It eats the stones.
That's
as
why cemeteries get lost.
Because they're acidic, these plants, and of course they're going to, you know, dissolve the stone if they're not tended to. That's another reason to clear the cemetery.
You get hundreds of years of leaf fall that turns into mulch, that turns into dirt, and you know people, and there's you know, there's a little bit of sinkage in the ground from the stones.
And
it's actually the leaf drop raising up over the stones.
I want to address I'm going to get to that, but I wanted to say Christy Parrish commented that the paranormal seems to be the natural path to which we are destined. It seems to be. And I wanted to mention Christy's comment because when we were in the Oliver house 3 years ago, that was, I think, the last time I saw a ghost, actually saw, and I'm looking like, what is this? I saw it out of the corner of my eye, turned around, and there was our ghost figure. So I don't jump. Maybe I'd be more credible.
No, he turned to me and he goes, "What time is it? Remember that."
Yeah. So
I said, "Okay."
Yeah. And Sarah Yosef, what did you say? I didn't get it.
Has it changed our perspective now that we're more seasoned investigators?
You want to address that, Keith?
Change in perspective. Yes, I did a lot of experimentation, which I would not do now. You know, using a friend of mine as the subject. Let's see if we can get something to appear or something on your face. Let's see if we can look in your eyes and get something to manifest. I certainly wouldn't do something like that now. Now I'm more, of course, I do a lot of deliverance, you know, going to houses called in for people that have disturbances. And so I wouldn't like use somebody as a subject, and which of course happened in the Perrin household. Carolyn was used as the subject in that seance, that famous seance.
Wow, yeah.
Disastrous results. But yeah, I would not do that. I take a lot of precautions, and I take it much more serious. Not that you can't have fun, but I do take it much more seriously. And, you know, speaking about trapped spirits, just to cover the grounds, when I'm doing a deliverance or a house cleansing, I do pray that any lost or wandering spirits would be sent to their proper abode. Just in case I cover that base, you know, I pray that would happen, because sometimes it's just not a natural state of being that a spirit is in that house. You know, it's not always because they want to be with the family or they miss being there. It's sometimes, as you know, there can be very deceptive beings in the spirit world as well as in the physical realm. So I
have a question about that. If you get a call from someone to come in and they say that that's the sort of help that they need a religious person to come in and cast something out or say a prayer over us, bless our house. Do you require any kind of I don't want to say proof. There's no proof. There's no evidence. But are there some that you will say, yes, we will do this for you, or do you just say yes to everybody?
Most of the time I say yes, unless it's like really, really out of state, distance, and I have to network with somebody, of course. But I
mean, sometimes you can tell that a person is just disturbed.
Right. If it's a potentially dangerous situation, I try to use caution when going. Yeah. But a lot of times we do wind up going to the house, and usually they don't have any proof except maybe some photos that can be questionable. Yeah. But we, along with even when we're there for a house cleansing or a blessing, we're doing an investigation while we're doing that, because we're recording, for posterity's sake, and we want to know who was where. Yeah, we're recording, and sometimes we take photos and videos. As a matter of
that, I start some of my investigations with a simple Google search, and I find out that people have been arrested for things.
Oh yeah.
I find out that you find out who they're hanging around with, looking at social media, and that it's probably drug induced. So would you still agree to go? Give them
Not if it's something
yeah.
like that. In fact, most of the time when we are recommended, it's most of the time that the client doesn't call us themselves. It's a family member who knows them that recommends us, did a search
Right.
for us, or a friend has done a search for us and recommends us. So we can get another perspective from somebody else as well. So that helps. I'll tell you, one time we went with a friend of ours who was in he was in a Massachusetts paranormal group, and we used to go out with him a lot of times. And it was way up in Massachusetts, almost in New Hampshire. We had this case we had to go to, and we got there, and there's police tape all over the place. And there's apparently been a homicide there, and they had it all blocked off. I said, well, I guess we're not going in here tonight, Mike, but I'm sorry. I didn't know this was going to happen, but that was a potentially dangerous situation.
Wow. Was the client, like, what happened? Was it,
I don't know. They wouldn't let us in. They said it was a crime scene. It was a crime scene. It looked like there probably had been, considering that they had the police there and everything, they had it taped off and everything. So there was some kind of violence that happened.
I wonder how that related to the paranormal.
I hope nobody got killed, but
yeah, right.
Well, we turned around and called it a night.
Call it a night. I will say that
we called it a night after that. Yeah.
From what I've observed, although Keith uses different strategies and things, and perhaps is more learned, Keith's methodology, his approach to helping people with paranormal problems, is remarkably similar to what it was 50 years ago. I mean, when you were into the house in Harrisville, and now called the Conjuring house, you did your thing. You went to intone prayer and invoke prayerful energies. You seemed to test, to see with mild religious provocation to see if it would respond to that. You documented pictures the same way. You walked around with a recording all the time, usually a venerable cassette recorder. And you did what you do. You do your thing, and you have since. Yeah, what have we got here? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are my in-between glasses. What would you say was absolutely a moment that you will always remember that you draw strength from when helping others? Excellent question, as are they all, but it's interesting. Christy J. Parrish. Yeah,
myself was in the parent household when Andrea's younger sisters, her siblings, were telling me how frightened they were and everything. And
August 1973.
Yes, August 1973, and coming up on 50-year anniversary of that. But I prayed with them, I comforted them, and I wasn't intending to use religious provocation, but that's how it worked out. But that's fine. Everybody was safe, and whatever it was left the room. When I invoked the name of Jesus 3 times, it left the room. It didn't leave the house, as we know, but it did leave the room for that night.
Didn't it make its presence known, though? Didn't it?
That's one of my experiences. Yes.
Signature. It left.
Yeah.
Well, how did you know there was a spirit there? What would indicate?
Well, because when you could feel it, the atmosphere, and I know a lot of people say, well, that's just feelings, but you could feel you were nauseous, and it was like electrical impulse. And the first time I said the name of Jesus, it started pulsating, and they all screamed. One of the girls got slapped on the left side of her head. Her head went back. She was screaming and crying. And it was a frightening situation, but I just got so mad. I got so angry seeing it picking on children. So I just called upon the name. And there was a window, of course, that could not be closed because of the August humidity. I guess Carl had assisted Roger in trying to get it closed. It was just not going to close. But as soon as I said the name of Jesus, that window came slamming down. And that's when you felt the electrical pulse in the room. It's like a bubble closing in on you. And they were also frightened. But I used the name of Jesus 3 times and prayed, and suddenly the atmosphere was totally different. And they all looked up at the same time. I noticed it, but I didn't say anything. But they looked up and said, "It's gone, it's gone," and they were so thrilled. For that was at least that was a moment that they could live without fear.
I think that was brave of you, Keith, because probably what you wanted to do and what common sense told you to do is wouldn't it be better if you just go outside, get some fresh air, get out of the
hyperventilate,
heat,
yes.
And just like that, guys, I need a break. I'm not ready for this. You could have taken that approach, which wouldn't have instilled any confidence in the parents.
Right. But, I was only a teenager. I was 18 years old at the time. Carl and I were both 18, but I was the closest thing to an adult in that room. So I realized I had to stay there. And I asked myself, silent, do I run or do I stay with this? So, by the grace of God, I did decide to stay with it.
Yeah, I had a pivotal transformative moment like that when I did that case in Providence, in the west end of Providence, the Army district, where a boy was under full demonic possession. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was another
you
thing.
Moment.
Do we hightail it out of there? Do we take a breather, or do we stay with it? And of course, the situation, we had to stay with it because pandemonium was going on. That 14-year-old boy who, by all intents and purposes, was under full possession, demonic possession. And we stayed with him. We stayed with the family, and a very, very horrendous situation. I mean, it knocked the energy right out of us, but we stayed with it. And that's why, I think a lot of investigators will come to a point, if they stay with it, where it's the question, do I stay or do I hightail it? Or that's why so many, I'm sure it bothers you people as well, when you see these shows where they're asking, show me a sign of your presence. What are you afraid to show yourself? Show me your sign. And then something happens and they all panic and scream.
Right? I've like done it before.
Whoa! What was that?
She'll receive,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude!
Yeah, that's annoying. Dude, did you hear that? Did you see that? Break for commercial,
Now, yeah, I want to bring up that Keith. I would just talk to this guy all night. Actually, I have spent a lot of nights talking to him. Elise knows, you know me better than just about anybody.
Not him.
Well, Elise wasn't there for the sleepovers.
We have the same kind of umbilical cord scar.
Oh, I don't want to know any of this. TMI,
now you know that too.
TMI times 2.
It's more than Elise needs to know.
Yeah. But no, Keith and I are very remarkably similar, even in our histories. Like, because we're twins, we have these bizarre circumstances and instances of synchronicity. But I am not a religious demonologist. It's kind of a subtle definition, really. And we do the same thing. But if you had to delineate it, I'm a secular demonologist, and Keith is decidedly a religious demonologist.
Right. Have you ever walked into a room, said Jesus 3 times, and had the atmosphere lift? No. He has.
Oh, one time or another, probably. I don't know. I could have done that. I don't remember right now. Yeah, I probably did.
Right.
Yes, me too. Saying. Yeah, but no, it's true. Yeah, but where Keith might be effective, I might not be in certain criteria, certain circumstances. In that case, it was very good we had Keith, because that had not occurred to me to do such a thing. And because he did that, I've used that tactic too.
Yeah.
But
well, what's interesting, you two had a case there. You had a situation with that former Providence police officer. I guess he was retired from the police force, and he was saying that he felt this voice was telling him to kill himself. And that, of course, sounds like mental illness, sounds like depression, that he's hearing voices, or schizophrenia, he's hearing voices telling him to kill himself. And very sad. And, you want to get him help and everything like that. But then you had it verified because it came out on a recording.
That was remarkable. That was one of those breakthrough moments. Good. I could not have expected that.
Yeah, that was not an EVP session. That was just I had just.
You weren't doing EVP. You had recording going, right?
I said, "Do you mind if I record this? I don't feel like writing. I don't feel like taking notes today. I'll take them later."
It was that simple, yeah.
And they said, "Fine, no problem."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that voice was closer into the recorder than anything else that was going on in the room, because I had left it on the coffee table.
That investigation was also turned into a television episode. It was, made a teleplay out of my transcript of the case. And fortunately, they had lookalike actors playing us.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, they interviewed us, we're on camera, but they also had actors portraying the drama, our clients and all. You became a tall redhead, didn't you? Yeah.
Which was kind of nice.
It's interesting. I've been involved with this case for a while. There's a situation where it's involving a special needs girl who's in her mid-teens, but she does she communicates with things. Voices come to her a lot. But they tell her things, anything from teddy bears to angels to deceased babies. She gets these voices talking to her, and she sees them too. We don't see them, but she sees them. But she recently had a family member's father passed away at age 75. He'd been very ill for a while, and she suddenly saw him after the fact. She saw him, and she said, he's saying, I'm free from the chair. I'm free from the chair. She jumped up and said, he's telling me I'm free from the chair. She didn't know he had been on dialysis for years. And the worst, and because the family told his wife that the granddaughter had said this, and she was shocked. How would she know that? How would she know that? That's the thing he hated the most, was being in the chair, having dialysis week after week, year after year. He hated that the most. He said, I hate this, being in this chair. So she comes out with, and she didn't even know he was on dialysis. I don't think she knows what dialysis is, but she jumps up and says, he says he's free from the chair. I'm free from the chair.
Which begs the question, because she was afflicted with mental aberration, was she hallucinating as a child would, or did she have a propensity to perceive these things? Like, in other words, she had a special gift to see these things, because her logical mind, which really wasn't operating, wouldn't block that out. She would have no reason to disbelieve it, to doubt her senses. Maybe she had a special communication.
Well, I hope you both get to meet her sometime.
Yeah.
Yes, we will, I'm sure, at some time.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a question or something.
Oh, look, this is an interesting question.
Yeah. Anything special being planned for that August anniversary as far as the Parent House is concerned?
Well, yes, there will be. I don't know at this point how much of a part of it will be. We're, it's welcome to be there at the house, 1677 Round Top, which is now, of course, the Conjuring house. I will certainly be mentioned. I think it will be mentioned anyway, that's the anniversary of us having been there, the 50th.
And it coincides, September will be Ocean State Paracon, which will be held in Harrisville.
Yeah, right near the house, yes.
Go to the Rise Up Paranormal page, you'll find out that there is information about having a little bit of an anniversary celebration.
Right.
Yes.
And, maybe not in the movie portrayals, but at least when they're having tours at the Conjuring house, as it's known now, when they're having tours there, the tour guides do mention having been there. Oh, yeah, very good. Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to bring the snowballs, those confections you get, Drake's snowballs. I'll bring them. I'll bring a basket full.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's an inside joke that we, But
Corey and Jen are going to be there. The Heinzens, the former homeowners, who are still very involved with the house.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. Yes. In fact, there's going to be a special showing of the movie The Conjuring. Mm-hmm. Now, I think everyone involved will acknowledge that movie was fictionalized. Even the head of NESPR, Tony Sparrow, say it's about 5% true. That there was a family there. They were named the parents and all. Then there was paranormal activity. But they had to make it entertaining, but still a fun film. I didn't know if I'd like it. I thoroughly enjoyed that. My brother.
James Wan. It was James Wan, though, the director. He would not go near the real house. He said, "No way am I going near the real house." He writes all these, like the Saw movies and the Conjuring movies, and yet he would not go near the real house, because it wasn't filmed at the real house. The house they used in the studio lot was modeled after Lorraine Warren's house.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a quote from Ed Warren. A quote from Ed Warren. Anyone who says that a ghost can't hurt you doesn't know what they're talking about.
No, that'll show you right there.
Yeah, that's a quote from Ed Warren himself.
Wow. Yeah. Well,
do you think a viewing of the Conjuring movie at the Conjuring house could be considered provocative?
I think so. But
we saw the devil made me do it.
Yeah. That house gets so much attention. Multiple sleepovers, investigations, even the daytime tours. It's always recognition of it. Always recognition. So it could be provocative, but
who would notice?
I mean, I know this is always.
It's almost as if the legend has become another legend.
Yeah, the legend has dominated the truth, as it does with fictions a lot. I don't think there'd be. I mean, maybe because people are more interested and more attentive, it might kick up activity. But I mean, when there's a movie showing one of the Conjuring movies, 1, 2, and 3, you hear a lot of laughing. You hear a lot of, because they, James Wan film, any good horror film is going to, or supernatural thriller is going to use that formula. Where, like the homeowners going around with a flashlight or something like, oh, and it's the cat. Oh, and then they turn around and there's the demon or the wicked spirit.
Elise, when did you first see The Conjuring, the first movie, the original?
I watched it in my house, like, when you could watch it. Did I go to the movie to see that? I think I went to the movies to see that with my family.
You did the
when it first came on 10 years ago, July 2013. It came out 10 years ago. We all went to see it when it first opened up. Us and a bunch of our friends and co-investigators and everything. And there was a lot of young people in the audience. But as soon as it showed Harrisville police, the police cars, everybody's cheering, yay! Because it's so familiar. You see Harrisville, Rhode Island police. It's so familiar.
You see that on the movie screen is something. Yeah.
The only time I really jumped during that movie, I remember they were like in the bedroom or something. It was dark, of course, and something jumped off the corner cabinet.
I know exactly what that scene.
Yeah, I know that scene. Yes,
I jumped a little bit.
The cat jumps off, and all of a sudden she looks up in the corner.
Yeah, that was.
Well, I think a lot of people.
I mean, that's what I'd do if I was making a movie.
Watching that movie at the Conjuring house, they have to be looking over their shoulders. Is this going to happen now?
Oh, we should be so lucky. Everybody wants something to happen when they go to the house. Of course they do. Of course they do.
Okay, what procedure would you go through to receive help if there were any paranormal issue in your home? That's a very, very good question. Carl, you want to field that?
But there is no answer.
Well, yeah.
No, I'm just endeavor to answer.
Yeah.
Well, try to ascertain what is happening. Do you know? Are you reasonably convinced that it's a supernatural agent doing this? Something unusual.
Right.
It can't be.
And I would say contact. There is a lot of help out there. There's many, many paranormal groups. There's multiple demonologists too. Find somebody who's reputable, and if they can't come themselves, find out if they can give a reference. Find out somebody who's reputable, who has done this, who has some experience, and contact them. Usually that person will get back to you and will interview you. There'll be an interview over the phone. And if they do come out to your house, they'll interview at your house too. But usually they'll start with an initial interview over the phone. So there is help out there. It may take a bit of searching to find reputable help.
And it's hard to determine who is reputable if you haven't gotten a referral, because I've seen people list things on their resume that I'm like, really, dude? You'll go to you'll be like, they were on a show for like 5 minutes, like I was. Now put like as seen on the Travel Channel, and I'm like, no, I was on for 5 minutes. I'm not going to put it on my resume.
But,
like that.
Yeah. If Ken DaCosta recommends you, John Zaffis recommends you, Jacqueline Nunes, the owner of the Conjuring House, recommends you, somebody well known and reputable, then
the person's going to say, I want John Zaffis.
Yes.
I want to go to the guys who are recommending them. But there are sources. Go to somebody, ask around. Don't be shy about asking around.
But you guys have an excellent website and Facebook page. If they want to research Panorama Paranormal, they can just, go to that, give them there's all the information right there, and they can decide to contact you. It helps to have a good, page up there.
Yeah, like there's only 2 of us. That might turn some people to be like, we watch people on TV. There's a dozen people that come along with matching T-shirts and black Vans, and how come there's only 2 of you and you showed up in a regular car?
Who are you, Ed and Lorraine Warren? Who are you?
Yeah, well, we can be if you'd really like.
What? We don't have any team drama either.
No.
So, we don't always agree on everything. We, sometimes. We get a good feel when we walk in and talk to people who is going to get along with the client a little better and be able to get a little more information that the kind of information you get not from asking questions, but about how to ask them and what they're willing to tell you.
Yeah.
So it works well, and we don't have to worry about, somebody else wandering around the house making noises while we're trying to record.
Yeah, right.
Only 2 of us. We control everything.
I've run into that.
I don't know if you two have gotten this, but there have been times when Sandra and I have gone into a home together. My wife Sandra and I, because we're New England Anomalies Research, we've gone into a home and they'll look at Sandra and say, "Are you the psychic?" And once we got, "Are you the witch?" Somebody asked her, "Are you the witch? Are you the psychic of the group?" You know, some people are looking for that.
Yes. Yeah, it's
You getting it? Yeah.
To her, and she's like, she's not psychic at all, right?
No, she doesn't say, "Well, I'll be more comfortable
a little bit,
if
but
you just call me Lorraine."
Yeah, right.
Intuitive about people is a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, for any kind of a people-oriented service, which this is.
Yeah.
You know, you want to be able to get what people are getting at, and you know what their reaction is going to be, and are they going to take no for an answer? And
Right.
you know, find out it's the dishwasher that's making a woo sound, and you try to explain it to them, and they'll go, "No, it's not that," and you show them that it is. I mean, they'll think you failed. You'll think that you succeeded.
Well, then let them go on to someone else if they, you know.
Yeah, I can say, "My name's Keith, but you can call me Ed," which is that's my middle name. So that's my middle name.
Can I call you Ed? I want to call you Ed.
But we were in the house of an older woman, and she said that there's a banging. That's one of the phenomena. There's munching and banging. There's tapping and everything. Well, you could just smell rodent urine wafting up from the basement and have one of those gratings in the floor.
Yeah.
And we were with our friend Lisa, and she was rocking in the rocking chair. She got up, the rocking chair hits the wall, and the lady says, "That's the noise. That's a banging I keep hearing. That's the banging." You know, it's like,
you have solved the mystery.
Yeah, one of the mysteries. And finally, Lisa, who works as a vet tech, she went downstairs. I have to prove it to you. She came up with a mouse skeleton.
Yeah.
And well, actually, there was some flesh in it, but it would look like it was alive. It was writhing because it had maggots in it. But this woman would not. She just would not believe.
Go to dinner after.
No, but
detailed. That's why I shut you up.
Her family came. They were there when we arrived, and then they came back. They said they'd be back. When they came back, we had a talk with them and said, "Look, I know your mom's very independent. She loves to live alone, but there's things going on. It's like." Yeah. Sandra said, "What is that noise downstairs?" The wood pile sounded like it was alive because it was filled with termites. It was just clicking with termites, you know. Now that's an extreme case.
You did a service for her, though. You did a service for her, and she didn't know how else to interpret the noise.
That's how you should. I mean, that's how you should approach an investigation. You're there to help the person, not to find a ghost.
It isn't always to chase the ghost away. You know, which there's no sound formula for chasing a ghost away. I think, you know, if you really want, if you're afflicted with spirit problems and there's a ghost in your house, I will tell you this. What do you got?
Cool.
Oh,
that's interesting.
It's beautiful.
That's an interesting photo. Yes.
Yeah, because things like that do happen where people see the image in the mirror. I've had that experience. If you bring in a skeptic, and I don't mean like, at least I would refer to her as a pragmatist, and party pooper.
Stop it. But,
realist, yes. But it has been known to work. If you bring in somebody who's not like, you know.
Hi, Zhang.
Zhang is that's a long distance call. Yeah. Not somebody that's like Kenny Biddle, who's, you know, that's his specialty to, you know, explain things, to try and show a real source.
He's teaching me even more tricks, so
watch out. He's got a lot. Well, I taught him, but you know, sometimes it's better if you bring in a skeptic, and that skeptic, you know, somebody that really, there ain't nothing to it. I don't believe it, you know, and the ghosts get so sick of them, they leave, or they'll go away for a while.
It's a good question. Is it normal for activity to pick up after having an investigation done? Well, I think you both would agree that depends on how the investigation is handled sometimes, you know, like when I find out when I've done an investigation, usually it's reported that even if the activity comes back, it's calmer, it's not as bad, it's lessened. I mean, of course, in the parent household, after our first investigation, that was the first time it had been investigated. Activity really picked up after we left, like during that week, the ensuing week after we were there. But, you know, it realized that Carolyn was no longer alone. This family was no longer alone. And I think it took exception to that. Took that very personally, that they were no longer alone. Now they have people trying to help them and intervention. Hey, from Manchester, England.
Manchester, England. Yeah,
Manchester, England.
Viewer in Manchester, England. We have
now,
one.
all right, so now we're going to put it on our resume on our website that we have an internationally known show.
It's
Yes,
international.
Now it's
Well,
official.
we are. That's
yeah,
official.
Internationally known.
We had somebody on the other side of the world, a young Sardi. She's coming from Jakarta, Indonesia, which means it's morning there. She got up early to watch our show. We appreciate
Manchester. I like Manchester, England. I've never been there, but I'd love to go.
that. I know Sean Manchester.
I'm sure they have their historic haunted establishments there.
Oh, I should put my glasses on more often. Hi, Dave.
David
Grist,
Grist.
can you see me now? Hello, David.
You know, that's so interesting because Dave Grist comes on from time to time, Lighthouse Paranormal. Dave Grist passed away in 2006. And, you know, sometimes, you know, we'll get, can you see me now? And that's our David. That's the telltale sign. He can only say that.
No,
but that's good. That's
he
something.
was Facebook user before.
Oh, that David. Yes. Yes,
You know, David Grist is very knowledgeable about UFO phenomena because he knows when something is not normal, something is not standard issue. He was in the Air Force for a number of years. He was air traffic control. So he tends to really recognize aircraft. And there's a lot he's seeing that not all when he was in the Air Force, mostly when he's been living here in Warwick, Rhode Island, where I live.
Near the airport.
Yeah, we're near the airport.
A lot of planes landed and taken.
I didn't realize that's what he did. When I was in high school, I took an aptitude test, and they told me that's what I should become when I grew up.
What?
The traffic controller.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I didn't even know what they were at the time. I was like, yeah, that's nice.
Statistics and logistics and all that.
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know, I'll tell you a true background story. There was a time, we don't normally talk about this on our show, but there was a time that both Elise here and Dave Grist fled the country. They went through a raging thunderstorm, torrential rain, and they ran, sliding in the mud, ran from the house to their cars.
Surreal. That was surreal.
Tell me that didn't happen.
Yeah.
You guys, we thought you would just go in for a quick interview. You never come out. All the lights are shut off. It still has never rained that hard ever again.
Right.
And we look at each other going,
Ever.
are they ever coming out? And it was like 2 o'clock it was like midnight.
Midnight at that time.
So we're trying to tiptoe down to the house, down the mud driveway, slipping, sliding, falling. We're trying to peek in the windows. We can't see a thing. So we go back to the cars. And then one of the crew that was local, it was a kid from my neighborhood, which was strange.
Surprise, yeah.
I saw him coming up the driveway and I was like, hey, what's going on in there? And when are you guys going to be done? And he's like, well, they're telling me now 3 a.m. I just came to get my lunch. And I'm like, I'm out of here.
Well, at least
But you were my ride.
At least did you ever think there was such a raging, pouring rain, constant lightning and thunder? Did you ever think that maybe we were afraid to step outside of the Conjuring house?
Yeah. Kind of
ironic.
Yeah, Dave, right.
We got a little wet soaked. Yeah. Oh, you two got baptized several times. You know, that was. It might as well have been pouring buckets of water on you, literally. You know, it's like.
Yeah,
I remember when I found out Elise had taken off. I was like Dustin Hoffman at the end of The Graduate, but Elise.
I was like, I'm not sitting there until 3 o'clock in the morning.
I think that though. Oh, look at the lightning and thunder outside. Look at it raining. You're in the Conjuring house. Yeah, but I'm not going out there. I'm not going out the grounds, you know.
The least word.
Ghosts are wet. I'm going to stay dry.
Conjuring house where it's safe, you know.
Dave says the lunch was good.
Yeah, lunch was very good. Maybe a little soggy, but it was good, right?
That was my big run-in with. I got to meet Zach Bagans.
Yeah, you weren't going to. At first, you said, "Oh, I don't belong there," so you come with me, young lady. And I brought her up, and I introduced her to the cast and crew of Ghost Adventures, and it was nice. And what did you think about him? He was
handsome.
Yeah, he doesn't disappoint in real life. That's on that aspect. Yeah,
I get along with him very well. He was, you know, it's a very good guy.
Yeah, it was a good thing. He all I can say, I know he's controversial on the show but they did right by me. I got along with them famously. Billy and Aaron and Zach, you know, it was an enjoyable experience. And I had told myself, of course, it was, you know, turned into the Halloween episode for that year, 2019. and they were recreating our original investigation. One thing I said, I will never get on one of these shows and say, dude, you know, like, dude, what do you think of that? Hey, dude, you know. So we had an old-fashioned, like the precursor to the millimeter, you know, it's a temperature gauge and, you know, EMF detector. So I'm looking at this thing from the like 1980, and the hair standing up on my arm, and I said, and it was fluctuating its energy readings. I said, dude, look at it. That's genuine, but they didn't keep that in the edit.
That would have been classic.
Yeah, of course. I said, no, don't keep that in when I say dude. You know,
Oh my God.
there's enough duding. Oh, dude day. That was a fun experience. Well, what time we got? I don't want to let them go.
It is 9:25. Well, we started a little bit late.
Yeah,
so
we did start a
that
little
is
late.
just
Yeah, we
about
were
an
invoking.
hour.
Oh, look at
there's
this.
the crew.
Oh, yeah.
There we were. Yeah,
Looks like gunfight at OK Corral.
it does. Yeah.
Get the requisite black
Yeah.
clothes.
Well,
I don't know if it was that night, but Carl happened to be in the house one time, and he looked in the mirror and saw himself as a much younger man. He passed by a mirror and saw.
A different
In fact,
night.
he looked like
I was a much
like
younger man.
he looked at like he did when we were first there in
Yeah.
1973.
That was when I
August
first
of
brought
73.
Elise. Yeah, brought Elise to the Conjuring house there and meet.
We were there with
Well, I was invited
the
because
other owners. Yeah.
Jen and Corey Heinzen, because they had just had the closing on their house that day when they purchased the Conjuring house. This is 4 years ago, and they said, "Carl, you got to be here. Your history's tied up with this house." So, and of course, I brought Elise, and Elise was new to me then, and I went and we looked around, and there was a mirror in the central. Used to be the dining room, the parlor room, sitting room. So I came in and I said, that mirror, that was there when the parents had stewardship of this house. It's the same mirror. And Norma Sutcliffe, she had that mirror there. So I go up and look at this sizable rectangular mirror. I go up and I look. This is true. I love to tell the story. I look in the mirror and I saw myself like an 18-year-old man. I'm not 18 anymore. So there was a startling contrast. Startling metamorphosis takes place. I looked and I did a double take. I said, wait a minute, trick of the light? What is this? No, I am seeing myself like I look in my later teens. I had my modern red polo shirt on, but my reflection was moving with me. But I had shoulder length, strawberry blonde hair. I had long sideburns like we would in the 70s. Heck, I remember that. Even some of the women had sideburns back then. That's what we did.
The house wanted Carl to stay. Yes, it's like a Twilight Zone episode. He turns around and he looks 18 again. But he can only stay young as long as he's inside the house.
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to keep looking at that mirror. I started to say, Elise, Cart, and I'm sure when they get in there, they're not going to see it. So I just memorized for about 3.5 minutes. I just memorized that. It's not the light, because I've been in there in sunny conditions since. And I'm looking at it. No, this is not. I will never think I imagined this. This is real. I'm looking at it. It's not like I'm looking back into 1973, but I'm seeing me in 1973, and it was remarkable. I said, I got to break it off sometime. Then in this house in Harrisville, in the bathroom, they have a more sizable mirror. Whoa, what a contrast! You know, I don't look like that at all anymore.
And wishing doesn't make it work.
No, I wishing in a mirror. Mirror on the wall.
I tried.
Yeah.
You know, the first week before he was totally moved in, Corey was just staying there some nights. He wasn't even totally moved in. The first phenomena he experienced was rubbing his shoulders. Something comes in back of him and lightly rubs his shoulders, soothing. He didn't know it, but I told him, well, that's the phenomena that Roger Perrin experienced when he lived here in this house, and one time when he visited. That's what he experienced. Corey had no idea of that because it wasn't widely known at the time.
And his son Kyler wouldn't stay in that house, wouldn't sleep
overnight.
No,
he wouldn't,
because he's
the shadow person. And Carl, that's
dark.
one thing. Our first visit there, Carl saw the shadow figure there coming down the hallway. It was not like in a human form. It was more like a cloudy vapor, but it came towards him, very, very dark. And he didn't smell smoke or anything, but it was like just
I thought I would. That's
cloud, you know.
And it was a fire.
And that's one of the first things the Heinzens experienced too. Corey saw the dark figure. One thing that Jennifer, his wife Jennifer, experienced, and this was not too long before he moved out. She was wearing a crucifix around her neck, or a cross. It was picked up. It was picked up like this. And then recently, somebody was staying there with her son, and she's actually a rather well-known psychic. She was staying there with her son, and she was wearing a cross, and it was picked up exactly like that. Usually spirits don't go that far, but
Yeah.
to pick up a blessed object. But
a lot of people feel they know what, and then I'll wrap up after this, but a lot of people feel they know what makes a ghost, what is a ghost. You know, it's electric or electromagnetic, and it's a surviving psyche or personality. What do you think, Keith? How would you say a ghost? And allowing that we can't say definitively, but
right.
What do you say is a ghost?
My belief is it could be sometimes a residue of someone left, someone who's in the spirit world. I think most of the time it's a deception. I think a lot of these spirits pretend to be children or lost spirits so they can gain sympathy and gain trust and everything. I do believe if there's any communication with those who have passed on, it's only because God allows it. If he allows somebody to say goodbye, like a loved one, they'll get usually it's a transition apparition, sometimes they're called, but somebody gets a message shortly after they've died. Maybe it's God allowing them to let you know they're all right. Carl and I had that when our mother passed on. Got signs from her that would be, particular to her. Sandra, when her parents passed on, she got messages from them. She just recently had a very, very realistic dream where she was in a cabin, and I guess people were making pancakes. She'd never been there before, and all of a sudden she looks around, and her mother's there, but as a much younger woman. Like when Sandra was a little girl, she had dark hair and everything. So, but I do believe that our loved ones are not that are passed on. They're really not that far from us. And I do believe I do believe they have awareness of us, and they are lovingly waiting for us to join them. And I think they'll welcome us with open arms.
Oh, that's a beautiful concept. Yes. Suppose like there's a child in the house, family moves in, and there happens to be let's say a little boy or a little girl. And this little boy came to see me. The little girl wants to play, and they're so sweet. How can you say that's something deceptive, Keith, when they're so sweet and you might feel it's smelly?
Well, you remember our client? We had a client in Marlborough, Mass. years ago. This is back in the TAPS era when we were members, and she went to a partially abandoned asylum with her family, and she felt there was this little girl calling to her. And being a mother, being very sensitive, she felt so sad and said, "Oh, you come to me, little girl. I'll take care of you." About a month later, this woman was about one step away from possession. She was blanking out, speaking in gibberish to speak that they didn't understand. Their family was having trouble snapping her out of it. And so it really didn't help that she lived next to a power station too. That I'm sure that had something to do with it too. Some believe fairies to be spirits of the dead, while some believe them to be fallen angels. Though the exact provenance of fairies is unknown, the idea of fairy is very clear to the English folklore. Since centuries, fairies have been painting the imagination of children and adults alike with their benevolence, notoriety, and magical powers. Any thoughts, guys? Well, I believe that fae are actually spirits that do exist. I personally do believe that they could be in league with fallen angels or demonic spirits. They can be very, like anything else, they can be very pretty, charming, but they can be very deceptive too. But there are all kinds of spirits out there, all kinds of fae. I believe in them, and it's what we call them now. I believe that have been around since antiquity. Possibly they predate humans. They've been here for a very, very long time.
And they seem to have a certain territorialism about.
Yes, always
their place to be invaded.
They're not always there to grant you a wish, so always be very, very cautious with any kind of spirit form like that. Be very, very cautious.
You always hear about them in gardens and such. You don't really hear about them so much inside. Are they outside spirits?
Sometimes they do seem to be. They make visits inside, but most of the time they seem to be outside around a house. And some people refer to them as elementals and such, which have supposedly been seen in Foster, Rhode Island. I know our friend
Would
Andrew
be-
Lake. He's explored them quite a bit there. He's seen
He's got
Fae
a-
there. He's seen different floating objects that he couldn't explain.
You think human spirits are elusive and mysterious? What to get into these diminutive people? You know, the robber sprites, the fae, the gnomes, sylphs. You know, they. What are they? They're their own thing, really. Their own humanoid kind of populace.
Well, Arthur Conan Doyle was a strong believer in fae. He believed that they did exist.
So would you say you're in a house you haven't been in before, and they'd say they've got little people in the house, and you turn around, there's a sweet little girl. They dressed her in an old-fashioned dress. She smiles at you, and you notice the eyes are all black, no white.
I was about to say that.
Would you then be a little cautious, Keith?
Black-eyed children, the black-eyed children, yes.
Yeah. Would you think that could be a little deceptive, a little, menacing, let's say?
Well, if they were outside, I would not invite them in. I would not invite them in, certainly, if there's black-eyed children at a house. But
I just try to sell you solar anyway.
That's what you had children coming to your house, one after the other, and they had scripts, and they would say,
"Would you like to save money on your electric bill? Go away."
They say, "You have black eyes. Don't knock on my door anymore." That's how you get in, Well, Keith, I really don't want to call this to close. There's been a delight, And
well, I have to do it again sometime, and I want you both to come back on Ghost on Air. We'll do parts 2 and 3. Maybe we can do it the same night.
Yeah. Dave and Wendy.
So many comments. I'm glad we were able to read some of them. I'll look at them all.
We always wind up having more and more and more to discuss. So you know,
we want more international people coming through. We got Manchester,
we
England, we got Jakarta, Indonesia.
Let's work on a few more continents.
Yeah, we want South America now,
and the ones that are close by. We're always glad to hear from David Grist and
viewers.
We love all our para peeps, all our family out there.
And I love the questions and comments. I didn't think we'd get one about the Fae, about the fairy folk, and we give some commented on it. I don't know if we answered anything, but gave our opinions of them. Yeah, black-eyed children. Yeah, did they spook you at all, Keith? Black-eyed children.
The idea of them does, so I'd be very precautious with that.
I haven't
well,
seen
I tell you, I've already discussed with Sandra. If we ever heard a knock and there was black-eyed children out there, I would not invite them in, even if they're asked. But what I would say to them is, Jesus loves the little children.
There you go.
I know some but they're not there anymore. Yeah. That'd be something neat if, some people are paranormal enthusiasts. You send the kids out with black contact lenses in, or like something like a mask that has black eyes, Those people weren't friendly.
Well, I'll tell you, I have yet to meet up with the men in black. I have yet to meet up with them, or the women in black, because there are women in black too.
A lot of credible reports of these agents.
Yes.
Come and
maybe you just don't remember.
Warn you, confiscate.
Oh, well, yeah. I didn't get much sleep last night. I don't know why.
See?
Ask Matt Moniz about that.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Keith Johnson. What's coming up for you, Keith? Some of the same things we have going on.
Yeah, so Ocean State Paracon's coming up in December, and it's going to be again at the Assembly Theater in Harrisville again this year. So we'll get back to the Round Top Road area. The Conjuring House area.
I always have a good time when I go there. It's nice.
Yeah, and of course, the Warren Con Phantasm this year. It's called the Warren's Convention. Tony Sparrow, NASPR. Anybody looking for information on that? Just go to visit NASPR, NESPR, their site, or Tony Sparrow. Just look up Tony Sparrow. You'll find that info.
I'll be singing there.
Yeah, I'm sure you will, Carl. I have no doubt of that.
Didn't I embarrass the bejesus out of you at a Civil War reenactment? They had the encampment, the mall, and I started. I don't know. They impressed me, the Civil War reenactors, so much. So I start going, "Oh, I wish I was in the land of cotton," but of course I get louder. All our troubles are soon forgotten.
That could be very controversial. Thank you. Very controversial. You want to see how controversial that song actually is. look up the entire word sometimes, not just the first verse. Oh, wow. You know?
Well, I probably wouldn't go through it now. This was like 10 years ago I did that. And my brother saying, no, he has no sense of embarrassment. Look, I'm not staying around. I'm not staying around. But, you know,
Well, we should let him sing every time and let him get him out of his system. Here's the mic, Carl. They get him out of the system. Who knows? Maybe we can pass the hat.
Everybody went to lunch. Yeah.
Pass the hat.
I don't need a microphone. Yeah,
Let's talk about Jesse James sometimes.
Oh yeah, one of my.
I like Jesse James. One of my favorite stories. I don't agree with everything he did, obviously, but I tell you, Jesse James was great at writing letters about himself, writing to the press in defense of himself. He could word that great. You would believe he was a victim and totally innocent if you read one of his reports, and he was friendly with some of the press too. So they printed his letters, and he was very, very good at doing that.
And the dirty little coward who shot Mr. Howard and laid poor Jesse in his grave.
Yeah,
well, he was a legend in his lifetime, and still is.
Shortly before then, Jesse had beat a 15-year-old half to death, but nobody's perfect.
They didn't write any songs about that.
No.
Yeah, but if somebody's assassinated from the back, yeah, you got to kind of.
Yeah, that was
regret that.
Yeah.
But he was very well worded, and you can kind of see his point when you read his letters. You can kind of see his point of view.
Okay.
So anyway,
Jesse James, next show.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I do appreciate it. It's been very, very fun.
It was.
Well, you just dominated the scene, didn't you?
He was the guest. He's supposed to dominate the scene.
So you two going to end with a duet now?
No, I'm not singing. Yeah. No.
What's it? We've sang duets.
I'm not singing.
But we do like bubblegum stuff and all that. We do,
We're going to say goodnight and thank you very much to everybody.
We do Disturbed. We sing that.
Is actually still here after those two songs. First of all,
everybody's gone home already.
Questions, and you can always find us on Facebook at Panorama Paranormal.
Yeah, Panorama
and you can
Paranormal.
Find Keith on Facebook.
And we do have a website. Keep
looking.
Yeah. If you run into anything askew that says Panorama Paranormal, just keep digging away. You'll find us. Thank you so much. And
thank you very much, Keith, and good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.
God bless.
God bless.